welcome to another episode of Wren's Wasteland Camp Review slash Dumpster Fires of the Commonwealth. At the moment, I'm on my high level character on my alt account, which was originally going to be just a burner account. Her name's Demona. She's themed out as a Mistress of Mystery, and that's pretty much the way that I keep her 90% of the time because, in all honesty, there's no reason not to. Now then, camp location is one that I like to use a lot on a lot of my characters. It's up here by the crosshair. This is the camp that I'm building for her currently. I am only building things at this location whenever she has uh, camp challenge things to turn up in her dailies. So if you look here, um, I can build anything in a shelter times 10. So we're going to go ahead and do that real quick. This is where my shelter is currently. Probably won't stay here. This character doesn't really have any extra shelters, so all I have is this shelter, which is the original shelter that you get for free, that I highly recommend everybody get. You can theme it out however you want. For me, on this character, because this is kind of a non Fallout First character, and I don't buy Fallout First for this account unless like the scoreboard is at the end or they're running a special on it and I can get it relatively cheap because it's just kind of the way I am. I also don't buy uh, points for it either. I tend to only buy stuff that I for it that I think are appropriate. And yes, I am layering in boards because, well, I wanted to show you something. If you do this with paintings, you can make those nice little stacks of paintings that everybody likes to keep in their camps to show their characters have been, scrounging the wasteland looking for stuff. It's much easier to do this in this environment because if you notice, the stuff will just float. You don't have to worry about it too much being perfectly aligned or being on the wall or anything because, well, these places have, by these places I mean shelters, have a certain level of relaxed building in them that is available. So you can get away with doing a lot of things in a shelter that you can't do normally in a regular location. So, but you just stack a few things on top of each other and then slowly work your way back with the stuff that you're stacking. This one here isn't far enough back. And so I might put it over here. But that's part of the problem with this, you see. It's getting it all to line up properly. And whenever you have things above it or beside of it that affect its hitbox, like these things up here and this over here, will affect the hitbox in this whole area right here. So you've got to figure out ways to work around things like that whenever you're building or whenever you're playing with stuff. Uh, just general warning for you guys. Now, I usually don't bother with showing you guys the scoreboard or where I'm at on it. Um, because I typically do not care about the scoreboard enough to pay that much attention to it. And if I do care about it, it's usually something that I'm already planning to burn through as fast as humanly possible to get through it. Because I don't genuinely like doing the scoreboard or any of this kind of stuff. But since the dailies are drink tea, complete an event, collect ballistic ammo, kill 5 super mutants, Cripple some super mutant arms. Thought Demona would be the best character to use for it because she actually is a sniper build for a character. As far as T goes, I'm going to go down here. I'll show you something. So the simplest tea that you can get is simple bloodleaf tea. And the simple bloodleafs, to be honest, the bloodleafs that you need grow along waterways. At this location, there should be about 4 or 5 little clusters of them right about here. Unless somebody else is coming through and taking them all. But there should be just enough to make a batch of bloodleaf tea. And the other thing that you need, of course, is water. Which, since we're at the river, there's plenty of water. Like I said, Demona's set up to be a sniper. She can handle this stuff without an issue. But, so once you get your water and you get your blood leaves, the choice that I usually make for locations to go to fix this kind of stuff is Grafton Station, because Grafton Station is a cooking station that's right outside on it. And so I can go make my tea, drink my tea, get that all taken care of in one push. If I need to kill robots, depending on the event that's going on, because if you have Grafton Day going on, the Grafton Monster, he shows up and he has robot handlers. And if you have the other event that takes place here, which is the protest march, the protesters show up, and you should be able to go through them long enough to get a few bots to spawn for that. I don't like particularly the pit or even the new boardwalk stuff that they've got going on with what all's going on there. So I don't really intend to go do them unless I have friends that are on that I'm playing with that are, you know, up for doing that kind of stuff. Now that being said, this character is a bloodied build, which means her health is paramount for me to keep track of. I'm not going to do any of that because, well, you'll see. Protest march. We got to kill 5 super mutants. We got to break 5 super mutant arms. So I drank the tea. I broke one arm. Okay, I'm going to have to turn on my HUD again so I can show you guys this, because the problem with running a bloodied build like this is the fact that HUD becomes absolutely necessary to keep track of your, how should I put it, health. And without it, I am a walking glass cannon with no idea how much glass I have. That makes sense. Oh, dang it. Missed the jump. Can we do this? Maybe from this angle. Yeah, there we go. That's Graham, by the way. What is Graham doing here? Hey, Graham, how you doing? Let me just go over here real quick. Now, a lot of these plans are only available on Graham. Some of them are available at other locations, but there are certain things like powered gates and different security things that you can get from Graham that you can't get from anybody else. Keep that in mind when you see him. And people will pay a premium for some of the things, like that suitcase that I just picked up from him. If you're looking for things to trade, that there's the ammo that I needed. There's my arms and my super mutants. Now let's see. Demona is usually carrying... Yeah, she's got it on her. An extra chest plate. The chest plate is... so I can have access to things like this jetpack. It's one of my favorite items in game, by the way. Always try and keep at least 10 pre-war money in your stash box at any given time. That's just a general thing to do, because typically in this game they will have you break down 10 to 20 pre-war money at any given point, and it breaks down straight into cloth, so you can usually get away with that too if you need it. I guess this would be a tips video. It's not really a Wasteland review video, is it? I'm not reviewing camps. I'm just kind of running around and giving general commentary on the state of the game. Which, I'll be honest with you, if I wanted to give an award for most improved, this game kind of gets it. Because it's improved a lot over the years that it's been around. They've added things to it to make it better for players and better for everything else. And they genuinely tried to listen to players, I think, with the exception of a couple little things, which are mainly decisions that players don't get to have any say-so in, because, well, game management and development teams tend to do that. So they decide what, gets made, what gets cut out, what you don't need, because We say so, and the We Say So Corporation is always right. Just ask the dinosaurs. You don't get the reference. That's a dinosaurs reference from the old Dinosaurs TV show that used to, I want to say, aired on ABC, which in the name of the show, whenever you'd watch it, they actually had ABC, the Antediluvian Broadcasting Corporation, was their TV station conglomerate that ran everything pretty much. So, as you can tell, my character's dailies are pretty much done. I've got a few weeklies left, but I'm not really struggling to do those. I'm just doing them over time. I'm also not really caring too much about them. But there is one thing that I need to grab that I left up here. It should be right here. Yeah, those. One thing that I always try and get every day that I play whenever they have a thing where it says gather X number of circuitry or gather this is to at least break down a couple phones and a giddy up buttercup, because it'll usually yield at least 1 to 2 of what I need. But that's a me thing. So I have been recording, and I'm not exactly sure how long this has taken. I know that I've died at least once. I'm going to cook this meat, and I will go review at least 2 camps on this character. I have 2 things of meat to cook, if I remember right. But I might not actually have enough to do anything with, because they changed, and I don't know if you know this or not, but in your menus, whenever you look at food and items, they actually changed the amount of meat that is required to make a mutant hound chop. They have a mutant hound chop light, which requires 2, and then they have a regular mutant hound chop, which requires 4 pieces of meat for something that you used to only require 1 for. I'm sure you guys have already noticed that in your own playing of this game, but if you haven't, I'm just going to point out that some of the other recipes have changed, not necessarily in the requirements to make or manufacture an item, but more so in the fact that now certain items do not any longer carry the amount of buff that they used to. Like some things will be like reduced to half. Let's go back to our regular armor, because I don't like having the jetpack on her shoulders. Alright, so let's go find a couple camps real quick to make this a viable episode. So Herb Kofer's camp is apparently a low-level player. They are just outside of Vault 76, and it looks like they're building a camp. So we'll go take a quick peek. Maybe they're building something that is cool, or maybe they're just trying to figure out what the building system is, and they're just trying to learn it a little bit. Either way, it's something that maybe I can help with. Wow. Okay, so I am caught underneath their thing, which I'll just do this to fix. There we go. Okay, so it's a low-level camp. It's built with the starting materials. Um, they have nothing in their vendor. Not that I expected them to have anything, to be honest. Um, they've either done a few events or had a bunch of people donate stuff to them. Or this is somebody's secondary camp. I'm going to vote for secondary camp. Secondary character, maybe. So, that being said, this is a starting level camp. Player that owns it is asleep upstairs. They put out way too many guns for the area they're in. Like, you maybe only need two. And I think two back there would work. And you really don't need any on this side at all. But looking around, hey, we got the barn set. Hello. Hmm. Pretty simple camp. I rate camps on a scale of 1 to 10. This one here has an outhouse, so I'm going to give it at least a point for that, because I always give a point for having a place for your character to use the bathroom. Um, but it's a very basic, very low level design camp. Even if it is their secondary camp, I'm only going to give them a 3. Not because it's bad, but because it is what it is, and that's all it is. I could maybe give it a 4 if I counted that they've got a lot of, stuff already. But again, most of that, like I said, could either come from players doing events or uh, it could be a secondary camp or a secondary character, which I'm betting it probably is. So we'll go ahead and leave it at that. Or maybe it's somebody that just restarted a whole new character because they're coming back to the game. But I'm going to say it's a 3. It's definitely not anything better than that. It's definitely not anything worse than that. I've seen worse. Way worse. You've seen worse. Way worse. But anyway, moving right along to the next camp. I'll go to Suddenly Concrete's camp and see what's going on there. So these are my two accounts together. That's Wryne on the far side, and this is Demona here, nearest to us with her backpack, with a little skull on the back of it. And yeah, man, I do that kind of crap all the time when I'm transferring stuff. Ooh, they built a bridge, couple prefabs, bunch of really nice toys out, 3 prefabs. They've got the CD shed, which has been done up as a bathroom, which is nice. You've got the I don't know what this thing is called off the top of my head. I want to say it's like a mansion thing, I think, if I remember right, is what it's called. But it's this thing always reminds me of Ready Player One and the stacks. If you haven't seen the movie, check it out. If you want to actually see something even cooler, read the book if you're into video games and old games at that. You hardly ever see anybody use these railroad trestle things and actually build a bridge that's proper. I like the fact that the concrete mixer is kind of stuck there, like it just kind of like crapped out. Um, I would probably put a foundation on each end of this to make the transition a little better if it were me, but I understand why they didn't. Or I would have lowered it down a little bit to where it went a little further into the ground a little bit to make the transition a little better. So they've got 2 points for using the prefabs. They've got an extra point for making a bathroom. I'll give them an extra point for making a bathroom out of a prefab, just because, it's kind of cool to see. They haven't spent a lot of time on decorating, at least not this stuff. I don't know. So I'm going to give them a 5 overall for all of this, not because it's particularly great, but because it is put together rather well. It is built to be a farm, as you can tell. There are farming materials making stuff for looks like adhesive, and they've got an adhesive plant there, and then they've got the concrete mixer there to get concrete. The water is right there, and all they need is a few corn cobs, which, if I remember right, they can get from a local source, which is right down here at the Wayward, without too much of a problem. So they're basically farming adhesive at this location. Um, and they're doing it the smart way, and the fact that they can, like I said, just go down there and they don't have to actually grow that stuff. It's already there. They just have to, you know, have the ability to get more of it. So yeah, I'm going to give this one a 5 overall. It is not a bad little camp. It's not great. It has some issues, but most of those issues are things that are easily fixable. And Suddenly Concrete has a few decent items in here. They even did what I usually do, which is make my workbenches free if somebody's getting a workbench from me. Usually it's somebody that hasn't been playing long. So I tend to not sell those for any kind of markup, and I don't really mark up recipes unless it's something extravagant like, a medical stuff that you would have to go pay a lot for. Anyway, I usually set it to about half price, but that's me. You can do whatever you want with your own stuff, and I highly encourage you to do that. So, last video I said that I had walking pneumonia, and I do, and you can probably still hear it in my voice. I sound like a dying frog most of the time. And the stuff that I'm on keeps me a little addled, so I tend to bounce around from topic to topic, which is not a big deal. Um, I have a cough suppressant which they gave me, which seems to be working fairly well. It just doesn't work really well whenever you eat. So if you eat and you're sick like I am, this stuff doesn't really help you that much. I had a chest x-ray. Apparently the walking pneumonia is pretty much cleared out. My lungs look normal. I'm just dealing with the aftermath of being sick for such a prolonged period of time, which is things just still kind of hurt and your body's still trying to adjust and you're battered and bruised, but you don't really see it or recognize it because whenever you have things like pneumonia or you have a prolonged cough, you're coughing for such an extended period of time that your ribs, your legs, all the muscles in your body get into it. And, well, it kind of eats you up a little bit, if that makes any sense. So, yay, I'm back to making videos. At least this one is done. While I was sick, I had to redo my Skyrim mod list and reorganize all that crap because of the update that came out for Skyrim, which is both great and sad at the same time. But anyway, nice camp, like I said. And I hope you guys have a good time, and I hope you guys enjoy the game, and you get as much out of it as you can. And I also hope you realize that uh, there is the quest expansion, which is the Atlantic City stuff that's coming out. And then there is also a map expansion, which they talked about in their newsletter that they post on BethesdaNet, this, which is basically a roadmap for the game. They're going to try and get out an expansion next year of this map that we all play on, which will take us down into Virginia and expand us out that way a little bit. At least, I would say, I'm hoping it's as big as I think it's going to be, which is about the size of, like, half the map that we've got, which would be nice, but it would be even nicer if they made it bigger than that. But I'm not 100% sure that's what they're going to do. But I can tell you from the art image that they gave us that it looks like it should be an area roughly about the size of the Cranberry Bog zone of the map, or maybe something else, just from the production art images. So I'm hoping it's at least half the size of this map. It would be nice to get another section of map that was like the full length of this map down here, where you'd go into it, you'd zone into it, and it would say like, Virginia, and give you a nice area to play in. But you do what you do, and they'll do what they can do. And hopefully Bethesda will be able to do what they have promised or are trying to do, because God knows Starfield is finally done, and maybe they can actually do something for this game to make it more fun. A map expansion would be the easiest thing that they could do, to be honest, because they could literally just take a topographical map, scan it in with Blender, and then run it through their process of cutting to where they cut it down to the size of a map that they want. And once it's out of Blender, put it into their game engine and use their game engine's own random placement of rocks and soils and vegetations to get everything up and running the way they want it to. Um, a modder would be able to do it if they had a good enough rig by themselves in about 3 weeks. So that's just me throwing that out there. Bethesda isn't like a modding team, and that's what most people don't realize. A modding team can do stuff because there's very few people in the decision chain to say this is worth doing. It's either worth it or it's not. That's what the modder decides on their own. Bethesda, on the other hand, has to pay for man hours, content creation, special gear, whatever else. They also pay licensing fees. And the other thing that Bethesda has to deal with that a modding team doesn't is the modding team can make a mod that'll come out for PC and it'll be ready tomorrow. Whereas Bethesda, even if they have to do a hotfix to a game, has to go through a committee and they have to submit it to whichever company they are currently dealing with, which in this case, say like submitting something to Sony or Nintendo for approval before it ever gets available for you to use and for them to get it updated on their system, which is one of the reasons why like Nintendo games hardly ever get updates, and games on Sony updates are few and far between, and whenever they do come out, they are hardly ever rushed. Usually there's about a 15 to a 20 day minimum delay between something coming out on PC and something coming out for like the consoles, except for Xbox it's not as bad, but for Sony it's at least 15 to 20 days, sometimes as much as a month, sometimes as much as half a year. But you deal with what you got and you make the best out of what you have. And I hope you guys have a good time with the game. You find something you enjoy and you stick with it. Like I said, there are expansions coming. Have fun.